So I'm going to get deep down into motherhood on this beautiful overcast Monday morning with you folks. Thank you for the messages about the post that I posted last night. When I get into those posts, I'm just very zoned in on it, and even trying to have a conversation, I cannot. I'm doing nothing. I can't even tell him what I'm doing because it's coming so fast, that inspiration that I want to share, that I'm oh my goodness, don't talk to me right now. So those posts that I make are really my learning lessons that I'm learning throughout the experiences that I'm experiencing. And when it comes to motherhood, and I want you moms to realize this, that you are a mom in this season, it doesn't matter what age your children are in. They could be adults, they could be newborns, it doesn't matter. You are in a season of motherhood. You are still a mom regardless of how old your children are. And I think about my older children and how different I parented them while I was younger. I was in my early 20s, teens into my early 20s, raising kids, and it has shifted a lot over the years. And one thing I want moms to know, and I want you to give yourself permission for this because it's really hard, and I couldn't have done this if I never did the inner work, if I never made a difference within myself. And I know inner work and healing gets thrown out there nonchalant, but I take that seriously. I do, because I have learned that through the hardships, the depression, the anxiety, wanting to kill myself or end my life, those really deep lessons have really shaped my healing and finding refuge in sacred places, and finding refuge and anchored in things that I know to be true for myself. And I can't speak that for everybody because everybody's healing journey is different. What God's story has in store for you is different from the story he has for me. So I like to keep that perspective when it comes to healing, because healing is this, it can be woo-woo if you want it to be woo-woo, but it can also be what you know to be true deep down because you have purpose here on earth. And that's how I have always kept that perspective to myself. So I would never okay, it's the generational thing, our parents did this, our parents did that, our elders did this, the schools did that, the government did this. There were systems in this that, you know what, friends, if I wasn't brave enough to go deep within myself and really acknowledge all the healing that needed to happen to be the mom that I am today, I didn't have a voice back then. And I always thought, we are literally preparing our children for a whole different world. They will live in a whole different world than we have lived growing up. And because moms, that these systems, these parenting styles that we were taught, that we lived through, our kids are never going to experience the life that we lived through. And that's something that I really had to zone in on. Be the mom that I am today if I didn't go through all these really hard experiences. I swear, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to start doing it. I'm just going to start posting pictures and writing stories from my perspective of what I went through. I feel our life stories that we go through connects us all together. People really want to know what we go through and our stories and the lessons that we learn from our stories and our experiences. So you know what, I'm going to share my stories through my perspective, through my lens of love, through my lens of courage, bravery, adversity, trials, resistance, just all the things. And I'm going to share it from my perspective, because if I'm inviting or if I have other people involved, my kids or my husband, they have their story too, and I want to be respectful and honor their story. So I'm just going to share it from my perspective. But anyway, recently I've been diving in, fully dive to watch, and it's hard to not be fully involved, but you just, with each kid as an individual, you got to meet them where they are. You have to meet all your children where they are. in their own life, into raising these teens. And okay, teens, some of my teens are like learning lessons not within my home, not within the walls of my home, but with life. And I respect that, and it's hard, and you got to keep pursuing them. You have to keep pursuing your teens in a way that you know their heart and you know their love. And one thing that I do tell my children that are dating and learning about relationships and what kind of relationships, and not fully attaching themselves to a relationship, and helping them identify who they are as an individual and not forgetting that while they're in a relationship. And just one thing that I remind them, that, they are loved. And I remind them, you are loved. You have a home. You have people that love you. But don't forget that the person that you are dating or in a relationship with, they are so loved. They are so loved by the people that love them also. So bring love into this relationship. And love for these teens that are dating. My life experiences, I know that emotional attachment is very, very dangerous if we're not rooted and grounded in who we are, in our identity, and where that identity comes from, and who do we seek that identity from. So just learning about that and keeping like that pursuit of involving and connecting with my teens is like, it's draining. It's so draining, because I go back to that. It's changing. The schools are changing. What, people's identities are changing. Like, it's a lot, and it gets heavy. And I want you to know, I want you to have a oh, well, I was a teen back then. But remember, we're raising children that don't have that worldly view or lifestyle that we had growing up. This is a whole new world. Technology, our society. You know what's best for them. Like, don't be afraid to say no. Like, I was always afraid to say no. And this is something that I had to go through and learn about, because when people tell me no, that's a red flag and a trigger for me. And you're telling me, this is like old Adri, like old beliefs, old storylines. Like, you were telling me back then no, because I wasn't good enough to have what I know that I needed to have. So my parenting style had changed, when I stop saying no all the time, and I added value, I added life, and I spoke life to them instead of just saying no. So you know what's best for your children, and keep pursuing them. Even your little ones, like even your middle-aged children that are still navigating and still figuring it out, like pursue them, pursue their hearts, pour life into them. Like, especially in this world when they're like just so zoomed into technology, into like the outside world and the influences, like they are influencing our children really hard. And like, you got to keep pursuing your children even harder. You know what's best for them. Like tools to help me stay connected to my teens, and being open and knowing that I'm not above them or below them. I'm right beside them, guiding them every step, and you're doing the best that you can with what you know. But the grand scheme of the lesson that I'm learning is it all starts with me and within me. And if I don't make changes within myself and do the inner work and the healing within myself, then I can't expect my children to do it. I can't expect to just teach them if it didn't integrate into my own personal life. So motherhood, it's been a journey, but you know what? I'm finding things in that, and I think with this whole conversation that I'm having with motherhood is like, don't allow people to tell you what to do with your motherhood. Find your voice, find your truth, get still and write down, how do you want to live? What matters most to you? What are you pouring life into your children? How do you value them? How do you want them to be valued? Like, these are all core foundations. They're just really learning life lessons through life and their choices. And you know what? I respect that and honor that, because there are things that I can only do so much for. And life just makes the lessons for them, and I trust that, and I have faith to help them build upon their identity of who they truly are. And this is going to help them in the long run when they become adults, So yeah, I just wanted to share that. So to you moms that are in the trenches in motherhood, whatever season you're in, you're not failing. There's no such thing as I'm failing. That failure word, that's not existent in my vocabulary, because there's no such thing as failure. You're learning. We're all learning. There's no rule book on how to do this motherhood thing the right way. And the word failure only creates more judgment, shame, worry, fear. You know them the best. You just got to get quiet and still enough to stand up for your motherhood. You keep it sacred and you protect it. And you do the best you can with what you do. And it's going to within yourself. It's a distraction. So get that distraction out. Take a deep breath and know that you're capable. They're your children, and they're your children for a reason. Don't allow others to give voice to your motherhood except for you. Last but not least, you're here to raise your children, meaning you're here to take them from where they are right now, and you're going to elevate them, and you're raising them to a higher, I don't want to say standard, because standard is just like expectation. You're raising them higher to where they were. You're raising children. And in order to raise your children, you have to raise yourself, mamas. So, I love to you folks. You can do it.